Greetings! Welcome to Nina's World. This podcast provides a short respite from the trials and tribulations of everyday life. We're going to step back in time to the 1950s and 60s. And now, our story. Nina teaches a lesson. Do you know how to blow your nose? Winter was more wintry than usual the year Nina was in second grade. The walk to school was arduous, and whoever thought it was a good idea for girls to wear dresses instead of corduroy pants to school wasn't a girl who had to wear a dress instead of corduroys for the almost mile walk to school. And yes, not only did it feel uphill both ways, it actually was uphill both ways because of the roller coaster streets. Getting ready for the walk was not easy because there were a limited number of scarves, mittens, and hats in the large cabinet in the family storage room, so the sisters selected the same items each day instead of arguing. Sometimes they retrieved gloves or hats from the radiators where they had placed them the previous day to dry. There was always a little bit of sizzle when the wet woolen item made contact with the hot radiator. Nina found the acrid smell of the steaming wool unpleasant, and the aroma tickled her nose and made her cough. Nina and her siblings were generous with each other, helping with homework, reading aloud, and even sharing colds. And that January morning, although the snow stopped, the wind was working overtime. As a matter of fact, Nina's cold was so dramatic, it was about to be nominated for a Tony Award. She had toilet paper stuffed in every pocket to wipe away the messy goo that dripped from her nose, and if she didn't act in time, would continue over her lip and onto the front of her coat. If she used all the toilet paper while on the way to school, Nina was known to use her coat sleeve. It seemed reasonable that the goo should freeze there instead of on her face. All the sisters and other students clambered up the steps to enter the school's front doors because some merciful soul thought it was too cold and snowy for the children to wait in the recess yard for the start of school buzzer. Turning left at the office, the mob headed for the school cafeteria. Puddles were forming on the linoleum from snow-caked boots, and Jim, the janitor, was trying his best to keep the floor mostly dry. Miss Garrison spotted Nina as she dabbed at her nose again. Apparently, the school principal had other ideas about hygiene for her second graders. She said kindly, "Nina, that's a doozy of a cold. Do you know how to blow your nose?" Nina looked at the wad of gummy toilet paper and handed it to the principal. Miss Garrison suggested Nina put it in the trash can and to follow her into her office. It was certainly a big room, Nina thought, as she held back by the door. It had a large desk with a telephone and blotter and papers, filing cabinets along the wall, big windows that faced the recess yard and play area out back, and on the wall, a picture of George Washington next to the American flag that was in a stand. She had never been in Miss Garrison's office before, although her classmate Charlie was a frequent visitor. Nina's nose was like an open faucet, and being in the warmth of school, Nina's eyes began to tear, adding to the conglomeration of body fluids on her face. Nina put her coat on the wooden chair the principal indicated. Miss Garrison sat at her desk, reached for a box of tissues, and handed a couple to Nina. She repeated her question. Do you know how to blow your nose? Can you show me how to do it? Nina was surprised. Shouldn't a principal know how to blow her nose? She didn't know it was something to be taught. But if the principal of the Maple Avenue Elementary School didn't know how to blow her nose and wanted Nina to teach her, well, by golly, Nina was mighty proud to do so. Nina liked Miss Garrison, but thought at her age, blowing her nose was really something she should already have known how to do. But that didn't stop Nina. The tissues the principal gave Nina were as soft and white and clean as a baby blanket, so tender on her rubbed raw upper lip and sore nose. Nina placed the tissue between her hands and, resting them on other side of her nose, instructed, "Go like this." Nina put as much wind as she could muster to blow her nose. She filled tissue after tissue, and the principal gave her another. Nina garbled through a handful of tissues. "I forgot to tell you, keep your mouth closed or you'll hurt your ears." This was getting to be a bigger job than Nina had anticipated, and hoped Miss Garrison would not ask her to explain why keeping her mouth open when blowing her nose was important. After putting her saturated tissues in the trash can, Nina exclaimed, "Gosh, these tissues are sure better than using toilet paper. Toilet paper falls apart right away, and all the boogies fall into my hands." "I'm sorry, Miss Garrison. Miss Garrison chuckled. "It's okay, Nina. It's okay. Here's one last tissue." Nina, quoting her teacher, Mrs. Wagner, said, "Okay, keep paying attention." Nina blew her nose one last time and was glad that hardly anything came out. She felt a little lightheaded from all the effort. The demonstration was over. The school bell rang. Nina knew her classmates would soon be standing for the pledge. She didn't want to leave, hadn't been given permission to leave, but she was already late, so what's a girl to do? Miss Garrison smiled at Nina. "Well done, Nina. That was very useful. Please wash your hands with soap and water at that sink, and there are paper towels on the counter." Nina followed her instructions as Miss Garrison spoke to the school secretary, Mrs. Ridgway. The principal decided Nina's nose and lips and cheeks needed to be attended to. She picked up the phone, pushed a button, and asked Mrs. Cronin, the school nurse, to bring some soothing lotion to her office for a very special friend. Nina's ears perked up. Special friend? She looked around at the office with only the principal and the school secretary, who was standing by the door, arms crossed with a slight smile. She was waiting for Miss Garrison to make the morning announcements. Nina was baffled. Was she the special friend Miss Garrison mentioned? Oh, my. Nina was never so happy to have a cold, was so proud to have been selected to teach Miss Garrison how to blow her nose. She felt a giggle trying to get out as she thought of herself, for the first time ever, as the principal's special friend. Mrs. Cronin brought a bottle of lotion, dabbed it here and there on Nina's face, then smeared it to cover where the skin was chapped. It felt like her face was cooling down, calming down. "How's that, Miss Nina? Better? You can come back during recess. I think you'll need more lotion." Nina decided she would definitely need more lotion on her face. "Thank you, Mrs. Ridgway, thank you." She never had such important people pay attention to her, but again, Nina was confused. With all of the children in the school, how did Mrs. Cronin remember her name, and hoped it wasn't because she had vomited on her first day of second grade. What a morning Nina was having. First, teaching the principal how to blow her nose, having lotion applied to her face. She felt very special indeed. But this was all getting to be too much attention, too much kindness for a lowly second grader. Nina's head suddenly felt like it was spinning, and she placed her hand on the edge of the principal's desk. Miss Garrison interrupted Nina's thoughts and said, "Well, time for me to make the morning announcements, Nina. Give this note to Mrs. Wagner. Oh, and here, take this box of tissues for yourself. Keep it in your desk. You never know when it may come in handy." Nina hesitantly accepted the box of tissues, then held it close like she was cuddling with a stuffed animal, her little cocker spaniel Shooby-Dooby. She tried to thank Miss Garrison, but only a squeak would emerge. Nina cleared her throat and said, "Yes, thank you," as loudly as she could as she left the office. Walking to her classroom, coat over one arm, brown lunch bag stuffed in its pocket, the hallowed box of tissues held close, Nina felt like a balloon drifting towards the sky. She couldn't decide what was better: the principal asking for her help to learn how to blow her nose, or for the first time ever in her whole life, having her very own box of tissues. The end. Thank you for visiting with us today. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to this podcast and share it with everyone you know. Return next week for another story from Nina's World. This story was written and read by Christine McKee, with gratitude to Dr. Ethel Ratkin of Bucks County Community College for editorial consultation and encouragement. Additional heartfelt support from family, friends, and members of my writing groups. Technical support was provided by Mr. Dan Tarrant of Personally Catholic. Sound engineering by Mr. Andrew Kimlock of AK Productions. May you embrace peace in your heart, in your home, and in your world.